Hi everybody, this is Amy from RealEnglishConversations.com, and in this video I'm going to be sharing some of my experiences with trying to learn a new language from absolutely nothing by myself. I mean, no classroom, no textbook. I'm just using my own strategies and techniques that I feel that I've learned through the process of doing this with Spanish. Now I'm doing it with another language. So I want to focus on one thing in particular that I think is a big realization that I had recently, and I feel like this is something that would be very, very helpful to anybody who feels like they can understand English really, really well, but they feel like their speaking is really bad. And they're not exactly sure how to start, how to get to that feeling where they feel confident to participate in a real conversation, and a really simple activity that you can do to try to improve your skills with speaking all alone without having to face the embarrassment of speaking to other people in order to get started. So what happened to me, I'm going to give you a really, really quick summary of how I approached learning Portuguese on my own. So the first week I thought, I don't know what to do. I'm going to download an app. And I tried the app and I didn't like it. I really didn't like the type of vocabulary that I was learning. I didn't feel it was going to help me in a real conversation. So I started to think about how can I find the type of words that I need? And literally, I thought of the phrases in English that I would want to use in a very, very simple and my first conversation with somebody, and I tried to figure out how to say those things. I don't know if they're normal or if that's what people say in Brazil, for example, but I thought it was 1,000 times more effective than memorizing a list that somebody told me I should learn, or going through an app that's teaching me really, really simple vocabulary, but I don't really feel that I'm going to need that vocabulary in my speaking. Anyway, fast forward a couple of weeks. I was having a really, really hard time trying to read a word in Portuguese and figure out how to say it. I realized that I needed to make a very strong connection to the certain sounds and characteristics that the language has, so that when I'm reading, I can kind of estimate more or less how this sound is actually said. So I focused a lot on pronunciation, learning some really common words, and trying to build those connections in my brain. Now, Spanish and Portuguese are fairly similar with the appearance of the word, but the pronunciation is like completely different. So my brain, when I see a word written in a way that looks like Spanish, I have a tendency to want to say it in a Spanish way. I had to break that. So for you, if you're learning English, you probably look at English words and you want to say it with the pronunciation of your native language, but you can't. So it's really, really important to focus on these sounds and practice to get familiar with the sounds, say the sounds, keep practicing them, because sometimes these sounds don't exist in the language that you know. And now, next step. So what did I decide to do? Well, I needed some motivation because I'm a pretty busy person. I'm working on the website, I'm teaching private lessons, I'm recording YouTube videos like this one, and I don't have a lot of time. At the end of the day, honestly, I'm pretty tired. I don't want to study. So I decided to book a lesson with a teacher because I know every single week I have this lesson with my teacher. And I have to tell you, my first lesson was terrible. I think I had like 100 words of knowledge and I was trying to learn in a conversational way. So it was really, really difficult. But that gave me the motivation to continue to move forward and to do the studying and work that I needed to do to try to make my next lesson and conversation better. So that's actually my strategy for motivation. If you need motivation, that might be a very, very good strategy for you as well. Both Curtis and I offer private lessons. We'd be happy to help you. But really, any teacher is fine. It's very, very effective to get that motivation. So now, let me tell you about my latest discovery. And this is something that happened because I was sick last week and I delayed my lesson and I didn't study much while I was sick. And then, I felt really, really unprepared for my lesson. And I had this idea that on our website, on realenglishconversations.com, I have all of these questions that I've created for speaking practice for our students. And it's great because these questions are kind of an open question. For example, it might be like, what type of activities do you like to do when you want to relax? A intermediate person or a pre-intermediate person can give a very simple answer, but an advanced speaker can give a lot of details. So for me, as a beginner, I thought, these questions would be really good for me to try to answer. I don't know how to speak very well right now. As you can imagine, I've only been learning for 6 weeks. So I was writing my answers. I would try to write it myself. When I got stuck, I would look at a dictionary to try to find the word. And when I thought that I had it together pretty well, I would put the phrase into Google Translate and see what came back. And that was actually a really good way for me to see some of the structural aspects, and I learned a lot during that process. So, okay, fine, I wrote. This still doesn't help my speaking. And I'm talking about the type of speaking when you're talking to someone and you need to remember the word really quickly, or a verb conjugation, do a contraction, for example. This stuff is really, really hard. So I went into my intermediate speaking practice department of my techniques, and I remembered, hey, you know what? I need to do the repeat it 3 times technique probably, or maybe like repeat it 20 times because I'm so bad at this point. And I wrote my answers, which were maybe 3 or 4 sentences long, maybe 6 sentences if I had a lot to say. And I practiced speaking. And what I did specifically, I translated the question, first of all, practice saying the question in its correct form. And then I took each sentence of my answer and I added the English translation, because English is my native language, at the top, and below it I had the language I was learning. And what I did on my computer screen was I scrolled up or scrolled down so that only the question was there in my native language, and I was trying to remember how to say it in the language that I was learning. And I had to do this probably, like I said, 10 times, 15 times, repeating the question, continuing to try to make strong connections in my mind to these new structures, sounds, words, all of this stuff that I wanted to say. And I really felt that it helped me. I did this, I went through the answers I prepared for 3 different questions, and I don't know, it really, really helped me. I can feel that type of studying was extremely productive. So what happened was I had my lesson after 2 hours of doing this type of work. It took me 2 hours, believe it or not, to try to answer these 3 questions, okay? So it's not going to be fast if you're a beginner. If you're intermediate, it's going to be faster. But for me, I don't know anything at this point in time. So I went into my class and I felt like I had a lot more confidence actually using a lot of the words that I had written in my answers and I had practiced saying a million times out loud. And I think that this technique And this strategy is something that can be very, very effective for people that feel like they can understand English, they feel like they can read English, but you can see a huge gap in between what you know in English, all the vocabulary that you know, and the words you can actually use in a conversation. So my advice to you is this. First of all, if you haven't come to our website, realeNglishConversations.com, and joined us as a free member, that's probably a good place to start. We have a lot of speaking activities in there and ideas that can really help you. But if you don't want to do that and you just want to stay here and watch these videos, I would suggest on our YouTube channel, we have videos called Speaking Practice Activity, and we have a question. And you can use these questions to do the same activity that I did to try to improve my speaking. This is going to be really, really good if you feel like it is hard for you to practice speaking. I mean, like really hard. I know how it feels, trust me. When you're trying to express something and it feels like every word you use, you have to think, and then it comes into your brain, and then you say it wrong because you're not used to saying it. So you say it with bad pronunciation. If this sounds like you, then you need to do activities like this. And the next step is, as soon as you have confidence, you really need to practice speaking with people. There's no substitute for that spontaneous speaking and the pressure that you have, where you need to answer, even if it's bad or incomplete. You need to think, use the words you know, and respond. This process is very difficult in the beginning, but it has to be done. There's no shortcut. I hope you enjoyed this video and found the advice helpful. Please leave me a comment below if you can relate to this feeling of, I don't know, it being really, really difficult to speak. I can say that when I compare how I feel speaking in Spanish compared to how I'm feeling right now, struggling to say one sentence, it's really, really frustrating with that difference, but it's all natural and it's part of the process. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel, leave a comment below, give us a like on this video, give me a like, please. And of course, if you would like to have the opportunity to practice speaking with real people, including myself and Curtis and other native speakers, definitely check out our memberships. We have the Fluency Power Pack, which includes access to join us for conversation practice sessions and access to all of our online courses. Our online courses are absolutely filled with speaking practice activities. We focus on real-world communication for listening and speaking, because these areas are the hardest areas to improve. And unfortunately, most of the courses on the internet don't focus on helping you to improve these. So anyway, come to our website if that sounds like something you need to do, and I'll see you in the next video.